All right, a very warm welcome to the press box. It is the World Cup season, and what surprises it has brought forth. We've seen a Cristiano Ronaldo hat-trick against a country that has accused him of tax fraud. Iran winning their first game in the World Cup since 1998. A film director saving a penalty from Lionel Messi, and of course Germany, the world champions, losing their first match of the competition. This is the press box. There's lots to come, but first let's take a look at the headlines.
Coming up on the press box.
Lozano cuts it back inside. It's Lozano! It's 1-0 Mexico!
Hitting the bullseye. Andrew Kabura picks Daniel Amokachi's mind on the shocks at the World Cup and more. A continent struggling for form, we attempt to unpack Africa's travails in Russia. And
what a way to start for Brazil! What a hit from miles out! Coutinho!
Find out the countries that the panelists think will rule the roost at football's showpiece tournament.
All right, welcome back, and let's start with my panel and my guys, of course, as usual, the usual suspects. Mark Namanya, who's the head of communications at Mark Sali, sorry, who's the head of communications. Mark, don't give me those eyes. Mark Sali, who's the head of communications at UNRWA, and of course, a seasoned journalist. Mark, welcome to the show once again this week. It's a World Cup season. Tell us what UNRWA is up to. I saw the Express Highway was opened just the other day, and people are already saying it is the next best thing since sliced bread and the microwave.
Well, interesting, yeah. We did commission the Kampala Entebbe Expressway on Friday. The president of Uganda had some very high-profile guests coming in from China. He had the number 4 in the Chinese government coming down with a huge contingent, as well as hopefully lots of money in grants ready to be signed and things. But anyway, yes, they did come down, commission the road. It was a very colorful event, and it was just one of those that it was a highlight of many people's ED. It was ED Day, you remember?
Yes.
But it was a very, very good one, and it set the tone for what we're going to be doing the rest of the year as UNRWA. You know, the World Cup is going on now, and they call it the greatest show on earth. What UNRWA has coming up is going to be big, greater than the greatest show on earth. You know, we're celebrating 10 years this year, and that was one of the first of many commissionings and groundbreakings we're going to do, along with so many other activities to mark this as a very special year for UNRWA.
Commissioned but not yet open.
Yeah, not yet open. It's not open to the public because we're still putting in place the entire mechanism for us to enable us to collect the toll. You see what I mean? That's sort of free road. Our expressways are all going to be tolled roads. We are trying to get the legal framework to guide us through our in place, because the road bill is actually before Parliament as we speak. And then we're also trying to procure an operator. The guy who's going to do actually operation and maintenance of the toll is different from the contractor who's constructed it, and is not going to be in-house from UNRWA. So that is still going on. When it happens, you should let us know.
Fantastic.
Pay a few bucks and then drive on the express highway. It's a good ride.
Fantastic. We shall be back to you about the thoughts on your World Cup. Of course, we have Robert Mado. He's the sports editor and producer at NTV Uganda. We have the usual suspect again, Andrew Mwangusha, who is a columnist with the Daily Monitor. And we are big on social media, meaning someone else is filling my shoes today in the names of Asha Komugisha. Asha, what do you have for us?
Thank you very much, Joel. Of course, I'm not sure about filling in your shoes because I don't wear sneakers on set. But anyway, like he said, we're very big on social media, and we'll be using the hashtag NTV PRESSBOX. And the question, of course, on social media is, what have been your highlights so far at the World Cup? 5 days into the World Cup in Russia, and we've seen big upsets right there. And also, it's been a little bit disappointing for the African teams. Well, we'll be looking at all that analysis later on with our guest, Ian Mutenda, who is the technical director at Brighton in the Ugandan Premier League. Well, back to you, Joel.
All right, disappointments, as Asha for the African continent as well. But the person who was supposed to be sitting here today is Andrew Kabura. Of course, we all know where he is. He is down in Moscow, Russia, and is giving us an update of what the mood is like and what's happening down in Russia.
This is the stage at which you've got to come and shine. Now, it's been disappointing days for the African sides with Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria are not doing very well. Tunisia playing later on today, so I'm recording this slightly early. And the bigger question is, shall we be having Senegal as well against Poland winning their match? But on the other hand, very unpredictable tournament. Did you see Mexico winning their game against the defending champions Germany? Did you see Switzerland picking a point off Brazil? I don't know what's going to happen at this tournament. What I know is that the press box will get you as many updates as we can from Russia. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. This is the beautiful Moscow River. But probably I should stop showing you around for now and focus on the show. Joel Kamadi, take it on.
Many thanks, Andrew Kabura. Seems to be enjoying himself down in Russia. Let me start with what's your starter for this week? We've seen the World Cup, which is a very, very unpredictable one if you've been watching and following proceedings this time round. Germany losing their first match at the World Cup, Brazil being held to a 1-1 draw, and African teams not really making it count.
Yeah, it's one of those, and but it's a great thing for football when this kind of thing happens. The unpredictability is one of the reasons why we watch the sport. Before kickoff, before Russia took on Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Exactly 1 hour to kick off, I took to Twitter and said, you know what, I've got to go on record before the whole thing starts, because for me that's what a prediction is, something that you do before anything happens. Because if I started doing one now, it would be unfair, because I've had a sneak peek into it, and I can probably do a more educated. But prediction is the fun part. And my prediction was actually that Argentina would win the World Cup. And seeing them play the first match, I'm like, what was I thinking? But to be honest, I'll stick there, because I don't change predictions. Over the course of the World Cup, I'll be perhaps telling you more objectively and with better analysis on who's looking likely to win. I can tell from one or two of the teams that played in the first game which ones are in better shape. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, later in the show. But I'll stick with my prediction, because it is my prediction. So I'll live and die by it. And I'll start by defending it here very quickly and say, guys, you could have seen these guys struggle against Iceland, but these things happen because the same Icelandic team actually held Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal to a draw to start Euro. Nobody thought after those 90 minutes that Ronaldo or anybody in Portugal would be holding aloft that trophy. So I don't think everybody who's watching now and listening to me talk about Argentina probably thinks I'm mad, but I'm not. And I'm thinking they'll improve. And I'll tell you generally, all the big teams that have struggled now, I suppose, well, going by experience, will still be at the latter part of the tournament when the likes of Iceland will be back in Reykjavik and Switzerland back in Zurich, if they choose to land in. That's a and but Argentina, I'm sure are going to improve on from this. When I saw that lineup, there were several disappointments. When I first looked at the squad, I thought it was a very strong squad. Then you look at the lineup they put out there, and you're thinking this is not strong enough. You've got a central defense that has Nicolas Otamendi, one or two question marks, although he's had a very good season in City, and then somebody who's barely played football over the last 4 months in Marcos Rojo. And then you've got two novices at fullback. You've got Tagliafico and Salvio. These guys are first World Cup and everything, and they play back home in Argentina. No, well, Salvio plays for Benfica. Yeah. Tagliafico plays in Independiente, I think. So you've got novices there. You've got novices up front, a little further up front as well, when you have Maximiliano Meza. This is a guy from Boca Juniors. He's also playing at his first World Cup. In the middle, the guys who are supposed to be experienced are actually veterans. Mascherano probably shouldn't be playing at a World Cup, but he's gone to China after sitting on the Barcelona bench for a long time, and he looked good in that one. Lucas Bigley as well alongside him. But then the disappointment, if Argentina are actually going to bail me out of this prediction, they've got to get the best out of people like Angel Di Maria. Di Maria is looking a shadow of the player who appeared at the World Cup in Brazil and should have helped them win it had he played that final. I strongly believe Had he played the final, they could have beaten Germany. If he had joined Messi in that final, he was that good then. He's not looking anything like that player. And of course, Messi was frustrated in that game. Sergio Aguero did a little well. But I'm thinking they're going to improve. One of the things that I expect that the coach will do, Sampaoli, even if he didn't play him at all, is to have Paulo Dybala more involved in this game. They're playing a 4-4-1-1. Virtually every team at the World Cup is playing with 2 anchor men and playing some sort of 4-2-3-1. Yeah. And they're the ones who are playing a 4-4-1-1, where there's little creativity in the team, and because Messi is the world's best player, they expect that he will work all the magic and then supply the ammunition to Aguero. But I'm thinking they should have a little more ingenuity on there, and Pablo Dybala represents something unpredictable. If they tweak the lineup around and go 4-2-3-1 as well, with Dybala joining Messi and Di Maria, so that's Aguero up top. I think they will improve, and I'll stick by this prediction for now.
Okay, just quickly before I move to Robert, quickly. Of course, Iceland didn't come in to make the numbers, of course. No. We know it's not getting any easier for Argentina. They have Croatia to go. We think they'll have an improved Nigeria in that group to play against. There's also the fact that this might be Messi's last World Cup.
Yeah.
And this is how it started.
That's one of the things I'm banking on. I'm thinking that the football gods have got to be fair. This guy deserves 1 World Cup before he quits.
They were fair with the penalty.
That he missed. No, I'm just saying, the bigger picture, this guy deserves a World Cup before he quits, and I'm hoping this is it. But it doesn't look like that, like I said, from the first 90 minutes. And yes, we've seen some big teams start poorly and not improve and go out at the group stages. It's happened to Italy. It's happened to France when they were world defending champions. It's happened to some of the big ones. Yeah. I mean, the Spaniards could barely play at the last World Cup. Yeah. But I'm thinking that one of those 2 games, either Croatia or Nigeria or both, we're going to see the best of Messi. The Icelanders, you've got to give them credit. This is a team that qualified for their first Euro and now their first World Cup, back to back. Clearly the country is doing something right as far as their football is concerned. But on the pitch, you could see why they get results like this. They work their socks off, they put men behind the ball, they are tenacious, and yet they're not dirty. Those guys barely kick Messi. If you see, for example, the contrast between how Behrami handled Neymar. He was kicking him out every time. These guys didn't kick Messi. They just zoned him out, and they crowded him out and took the ball off him every time they felt like. And they worked really hard. I don't think Croatia, for example, with the abilities they have technically and the stature they have in world football, are going to come again to play against Argentina with 10 men behind the ball. Rakitic and Modric are not going to do that. So I think there'll be some space for Argentina to play. And the Nigerians, they're way too arrogant to play a bus, to pack a bus. So I don't think they will either. So, so I'm thinking open spaces, Lionel Messi on top of his game,
he'll rise up
through the group.
Yes. Fantastic, Mark. I'll be coming to you much later on the show. Robert, Germany losing, the defending champions losing their first match at the World Cup, but as history suggests, it's not new for a defending champion to be losing that first match.
Yes, Joel, you've given it away. Germany is the team, that I threw my weight behind.
So you're not looking much better than I am.
Yes,
a little worse, maybe.
Yes, but I think I'll borrow a leaf from you and also defend it as passionately as you have defended Argentina. I know it's going to be hotly disputed, probably as hotly disputed as the age of the Nigerian goalkeeper, but that's a subject for another day. I believe, as you've said, Germany lost the opening match in 1982 and they went on to make the final. So you could say it's good omens for them. They were playing as West Germany, I think, back then. This time round, I was a bit surprised. I thought they were a bit complacent. They had this sense of entitlement. They expected, the Mexicans to come over and they roll over them. They didn't expect Mexico to bring that energy. Mexico brought, lots of energy, and they caught the Germans unawares.
And somebody was arguing and saying that, Germany, according to the style of play, and Mexico mastered it, and they're waiting to suck up the pressure and hit them on the counter.
Yeah, I think also the Mexicans looked at Germany, their friendly matches and saw that they were there for the taking, because let's be honest, they did not cover themselves in glory during their friendly matches. They lost against Austria 2-1, and Saudi Arabia, whom people are saying, you know, they were fasting, and that's why they leaked goals against against Russia. I don't know if they were fasting when they played the Germans, but they did put up a fight against the Germans. It was actually 2-1, and they were denied, I think, a penalty in that friendly match. So I don't know. You know, Joachim Löw has been tweaking things. The German machine, you thought he wouldn't touch it, but he's touched it a bit, and things don't look good. But I think, you know, they needed that. They needed that to wake them up. They have a pretty decent team. I like Timo Werner. You know, he plays brilliantly well, you know, off the shoulder of the last defender. And they have a good option in Mario Gomez, you know, a plan B if things go south. Yeah, he's a guy who can get you, you know, that who can get you out of jail. But
so are you saying it's early days for Germany?
It is early days. I am hoping, you know, they will top their group, and they won't have to meet Brazil during the round of 16. But even if they meet Brazil during the round of 16, I believe, you know, they have the quality and the strength in depth to beat Brazil, whom I think
I love the way everyone is picking on their bit of history, which favors them. He picks on 82, the opening match, and he doesn't tell us that actually every World Cup winner has gone on to crash out in the group stage since 98, 2000. That's France 2002, Italy 2010, and then of course in Brazil we had Spain. And
no one has defended the World Cup since '62. I think
Something
Uganda
like
was
that.
getting its independence.
So clearly, the odds are really stacked against you, and clearly you are worse than Mark.
Andrew, Robert is worse than Mark. Mark is on his own league. You, on the other hand, is someone who supports Brazil, I'm sure, and you're expecting them to win, and would be coming here to discuss this topic on a different angle that Brazil had beaten Switzerland, but you're not doing as well.
I actually want to put it on record. I do not support Brazil, but for this prediction,
That's my team, but imagine,
for this prediction, I actually looked at the teams and thought Brazil have all odds. The team, the coach, everything is really stacked in their favor. When you look, first I'll go with the gut feeling. The gut feeling, of course, is they haven't forgotten the 7-1 mauling at the hands of Germany.
Belo Horizonte.
Belo Horizonte. And what better way than to come and win this? Of course, the baggage is not that much. I think there's Marcelo, Fernandinho, and Willian of that team. That lost to Germany. So they have quite a good breed of kids who may not be affected by that, but the Marcelos as well want to put that one over Germany. And also looking at the squad, look at the balance, looking at the goalkeeping department. Ederson should be first choice for any other team, but he's on the bench. Alisson is on. And then you look at the back four, or the central defense, there could be some deficiencies, but when you look at the two holding, Casemiro and there's Casemiro and Fernandinho.
They use one.
Paulinho
started. Yes.
Andrew, I'll just interject you a bit. Someone told me, I was talking to someone, and they told me that Brazil lacked the flair and the fluidity attached to them. Neymar didn't show up till Firmino came in. Is it the team selection?
I don't think the fluidity right now is going to be looked for really, especially if you have a Neymar struggling from a long-term injury. But also takes me to the gut. In 2002 when they took it, Ronaldo was coming off a long layoff. So that could take us back, deja vu. Perhaps this could be it. Of course, he didn't show up. He was hacked every time he turned, like Mark said. Actually, the Swiss were out to get him every time he got the ball, and that was it. But again, when you look at the front, they have quite a number of rich options. Even when Firmino is, of course, you have Coutinho, Neymar if he's on, Gabriel Jesus. And then, of course, Firmino, Willian himself, workhorse, working off the Casemiros. So looking at Brazil, the balance from the defense, through the middle, through the attacking. You're looking at them and you're thinking, who will stop them? Looking at Germany, we are all not sure yet what they can do. Yes, they're a tournament team, but from the start, there are question marks. We look at Spain, perhaps that could come in. But again, I'll go for Brazil to win it, but I won't stop without mentioning a dark horse. And this dark horse has proved tournament to tournament. No one rates them, but somehow they survive through, and that's Portugal. I'm not saying they'll win it, but you cannot put it beyond them. And especially like Mark said, this is Ronaldo's could be final World Cup. And I have not seen Ronaldo in the last 4 years approach a game with the resolve and body language he did against Spain. So that tells you something about this tournament. Still Brazil should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, we've heard from the three gentlemen here with me, but let's just get a feel of what Asha thinks, and I have a feeling she shares your same sentiments about what she thinks about her World Cup so far. Being told we shall be doing that later in the show when she comes up, but let's take a short break. When we come back, we go to Andrew Kabura, who's down in Russia. He'll be giving us an update of what's taking place, plus we discuss the World Cup extensively. It is currently 1-1 against England and Tunisia last time I checked. We'll be giving you updates of that and so much more after this short break. All right, welcome back. You're watching the Press Box, and of course we're talking the World Cup, which is big and full of surprises. As we speak, England is currently taking on Tunisia. It is 1-1, and I'll just cue in my director to just play you some pictures of that match live that is happening right now, courtesy, of course, of SuperSport. Let's just listen in and see what's happening.
What England wouldn't want, if they, as they are expecting to progress in the competition, is that there is too much jeopardy on the final group game against Belgium. And supporters beginning to get behind them vocally now. On a warm, energy-sapping evening. Forward by Pickford, too far in advance of Sterling.
All right, still 1-1 there between England and Tunisia. Of course, Tunisia looking to be the first African team to get a positive result from the World Cup. Of course, they already have done something by getting the first goal from an African nation in this World Cup. Talking of African nations, there's Egypt, who succumbed to a loss against Uruguay on match day 2 of the World Cup. And we're lucky to have an Egyptian fan and football enthusiast in the names of Dr. Hossam Hassan, who's no way related to legendary Egyptian footballer Hossam Hassan. Take a listen.
Good evening, this is Dr. Hossam Hassan. Greetings from Moscow. I'll talk about Egypt's first game against Uruguay. It was a very tough game against a very tough opponent, full of stars like Edson Cavani and Luis Suarez, Jimenez and Godin, with a very expert manager like Oscar Tabarez. Egypt tried to play a disciplined game and tried to score against this tough opponent. They played a very good game, but they lacked experience in the last minutes against Serbia. We considered it as a goal in the last minutes. We tried to play a good game against Russia, especially with the return of Mohamed Salah. He will start tomorrow. The game will be very tough against the host nation. With full crowd, we try to win and to pass to the next round against a team who won against in the opening game against Saudi Arabia with a big result like 5-0. It will be a tough game, and we hope that we can win.
Hossam Hassan, very many thanks. He is a football enthusiast from Egypt, and he's currently watching the games in Russia, the World Cup in Russia. Andrew, Egypt went ahead to lose their first match, and very many people are of the view that, you know what, the absence of Mo Salah was a factor.
Of course, we can never know. I mean, Mo Salah was the best player, scoring almost all the goals in the qualifiers. But listening to Dr. Hossam, he talks about the experience, inexperience giving way against a very experienced Uruguay, coached by Oscar Tabarez. I think for as long as I've watched the World Cup, that man has been in charge of Uruguay. So, and he's kept with this team. And they have quite a number of experienced players, and Egypt, of course, gave their all, but falling late onto that 1-0 defeat. Again, it told on the experience, but also, like we saw in the final, Real Madrid against Liverpool, they didn't have their body and soul, and their body and soul is Mo Salah. So we can only hope that he pops up for Russia against Russia when they face off Wednesday. But again, it was always going to be tough for Egypt, because looking at it against Uruguay, I thought maybe the best could have been a draw, but I didn't expect them to go past the experience of Uruguay. And against Russia, not as technically gifted as Uruguay, but this is a home team we are talking about. And any home team, like you saw South Africa in the opening match in 2010, they always have something special, that X factor, because they're a home team. And they're coming off a 5-0 drubbing of Saudi Arabia. Of course, not the most technically gifted Saudi Arabia, but at home, they'll want to qualify for the next round in this match. And the worst result for Egypt, of course, could be a loss. But if they could snatch a draw against Russia, they'll go into the match against Saudi Arabia, hoping, because everyone in that group is looking to Saudi Arabia for 3 points.
All right,
I think they should fancy their chances against the Russians. I thought Russia played terrific football against the Saudi Arabians, but that old creaking defense of Russia, and they play a three-man backline. If you have Mo Salah at the peak of his powers, and you have Marwan who is making those movements that are going to destabilize this three-man defense, Mo Salah should have something to nibble at in this match against Russia. It's obviously going to be a very, very difficult match for them, but I want them to take a positive mindset into that game. Obviously there have been questions around Hector Cooper, is he the right man to take charge of Egypt, which has talented players, because he seems to be negative in some of his tactics. So there is that question, because there are no two ways about it. He has to take the game to Russia.
But I also don't expect Russia to come at Egypt the way they did Saudi Arabia. No, because because they know. I mean, Egypt are more technically astute compared to Saudi Arabia.
What happens is that when you're playing in front of the home crowd, they're going to push you. If you're Russia, and they're bad by that win against Saudi Arabia, so they think they can take on the world.
Yes,
it's not going to be easy for the Egyptians. The Russians might have a quicking defense, but just one touch, innocuous of the shoulder and Salah, because
from the 39-year-old
Russian.
Russian
skipping ahead of tackles, anticipating tackles and skipping earlier. It's because he doesn't want to be touched. It's just instinctive.
Actually, the Switzerland players were actually complaining that once you got close to him, he's jumping too fast.
But they were still kicking him, to be honest. The thing though is that your first game back after injury, competitive one, because Neymar has even played some friendlies, which Salah hasn't.
You're very cautious.
Yeah, you're very cautious. And a slight touch here. I saw as they walked out of the tunnel for that game, Egypt, for that game against Uruguay, there's somebody who actually touched Salah's shoulder, and I don't know if he flinched. Did you see that? As they came out of the tunnel, did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was like, "Don't do that." So it's a bit of a worry, but yes, he would have something to nibble at. He's just the man with the Midas touch right now. He would get a chance against anybody. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. Salah will get in on a scoring position. It's just been that way. And like you said with Marwan there's Trezeguet as well. I think Trezeguet is very decent
speed.
He's got speed and all. Very decent player. They can create something. But the Russians have been underrated by so many, because what happened is that before the World Cup kicked off, there's this whole betting world out there in this town of ours that gave me some calls asking about things. When I told them Russia were going to win the game against Saudi, no, they didn't. Clearly, they don't rate. Nobody rates Russia. And I said, guys, they are a home team for starters, and home teams just don't disappoint. Never mind South Africa in 2010. Virtually every other home team goes through, because even South Korea and Japan did when they hosted some 16 years ago. The thing though is that they've got firepower. the guy they lost in Zhagoev, he's a goal scorer. But then the guys who stepped off the bench, Artem Zhuba is somebody who scored goals for the last, I don't know, 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
He's a goal scorer.
Yeah.
Sheshev, the guy who got the 2 goals, that guy was a prodigy. The other day, Zidane picking him out of nowhere and taking him to Madrid.
Yeah.
Everybody was saying, who's this kid? So he's very good as well. And then they've got Smolov, didn't score in this game.
Yeah.
They've got... who else came off the bench and scored?
Yeah.
It was Sheshev and Zuba. So they've got firepower, Russia. And that the Egyptians have got to be wary, because fired on by the crowd, they'll still come at you, and I expect the Russians to win that game too. So, and I'm afraid I don't even think Salah will start that game. I hope he does. If he doesn't, then he'll be playing on a dead rubber against Saudi Arabia in the last game, which too will be some sort of Arabian derby, which will be quite serious. So I think unlike the two of them, I don't have any optimism where Egypt is concerned. Where Egypt is concerned, I'm sorry, no optimism from me.
Robert, Russia, of course, are banking on home support. Regardless, say they're playing some pretty very good football. They're playing. Egypt will be looking to get a positive result in that second group game. Do you see them getting out of their group?
I think when Mark was running us through Russia, one thing that sent a chill through my spine was the aerial prowess of the Russians. And we've seen that this has been a problem with the African teams. Actually, all 5 goals that Africa has considered collectively have come from set pieces. Would you believe it? Yeah, our defending at set pieces is really atrocious, to say the least. So will the Egyptians be switched on when they concede set pieces, as I would imagine they will? Because Russia, has some big men who really throw themselves at some of these set pieces, so they will need, Ahmed Hegazi to be switched on and to man, that back line. And they will need for their young, Al Ahly goalkeeper, to be more proactive when it comes to those set pieces, to kind of, to snatch that goal scoring opportunity away from the Russians. Because I believe, set pieces are going to be really, really crucial for the hosts.
All right, fantastic there. And I'll be talking about another African team, which is Nigeria, who many are saying we're concentrating more about their attire and less about their style of play. We have Andrew Randa, who is, of course, also in Russia, Nigerian journalist, to give us his thoughts about the Nigerian composition team so far and what he predicts.
Good evening from a cold and windy St. Petersburg in Russia. I'm Andrew Randa, football writer from Nigeria. The Super Eagles lost 2-0 to Croatia. Was really terrible watching them play. I was pitch side at that moment. So it wasn't really a good outing for us, and especially for African teams in the competition so far. Morocco lost, Egypt lost, and Tunisia is set to play England, and then Senegal is up next. We just hope they will be able to restore some African pride by winning their games and getting boards on point. There's been no point on board for any of the African teams so far. Nigeria too has been a little bit disappointing, and I'm hoping that Geno will be able to tweak his squad and get the right players in the right formation. A lot of them didn't really know where they were playing or how they should play, and he switched to a 4-3-3 instead of 3-5-2 that we played against England. That there was a good second half against England, so I expect a bit of changes coming into the second game, the game against Iceland. I remember Iceland played a 1-1 draw with Argentina in the first game, so it means they will also be trying to get more points on board so they can get to the next round. Nigeria have their backs against the wall. They really need to come out. They really need to make it happen. They really need to get the boys on point if they have any chances of going into the second round. It's going to be really, really difficult for Nigeria and the African teams. We're hoping they're going to do it. The squad is quite good. No, it's not at the level of the USA 94 and France 98 squad. You remember back then we had the likes of Daniel Amokachi, Rashidi Akini, JJ Okocha, Sunday Olise, and a host of others. They did Nigeria proud. We won the Olympics in '96. They got to the second round of the World Cup in '98, second round in '94. But this squad is quite young. Maybe this tournament has come a little bit too early for them, but that being said, I do expect that they will come out gun blazing against Iceland and just show Africans and the whole world exactly what they are made of. The African teams haven't really done well, and I'm hoping that Egypt, Morocco, Senegal, Tunisia, and Nigeria will be able to do Africa proud. It's cold and windy here in St. Petersburg, and we'll be moving over to Volgograd tomorrow in preparation for Nigeria's game against Iceland. I just hope again that Africa will be able to do us proud. The Super Eagles, the Senegalese, Tunisians, Moroccans and the Egyptians will be able.
Of course, that's Andrew Rwanda, Nigerian journalist who is in Russia. Andrew, your namesake there.
I could almost touch his pain.
You could almost feel his pain. Nigeria going into this tournament, they were highly rated, but against Croatia, they didn't show up. Croatia was running circles around them. They're coming up against Argentina very soon. Things are not looking
Actually, I'm
bright.
one of those who rated Nigeria, who gave Nigeria a chance coming into this World Cup. When you look at the way they qualified, someone argued that Nigeria qualified
It was a tough group.
Tough group, but also the opponents were in disarray. Like Mascherano said, you don't want to face a disorganized Nigeria. Now, Nigeria came out of a group that had teams that were also disorganized back home. But the way they qualified and the manner in which they took care of the opponents was impressive. And then also looking at the friendlies, they were so good in the friendlies. So I expected them to come in and do something special. They beat Argentina, but when you look at the opponents, I mean, you have to look at these opponents critically and see how good are they. Looking at Croatia, actually before the Croatia game, I didn't expect Nigeria to beat Croatia, because when you look at the technical abilities, starting from the middle where you have Luka Modric, you have Rakitic, you have, I mean, this is a team that is well gifted, good on the ball, and they're quite solid from the back through the middle to the front. So I expected the best could have been a draw perhaps, but also the way they didn't turn up raised question marks, because this is Nigeria, and in Africa, with the absence of Cameroon, if there's any team you can trust to go and do something, turn the odds against it's Nigeria. And that's why against Iceland, I actually fancy Nigeria to get something out of the Iceland game.
All right, Robert, you don't want to be Nigeria coach General Raw right now, because once you look at the way ahead, we have Argentina, we have Iceland, who many are not giving a chance really in this World Cup, but things are looking pretty grim from the group stages for Nigeria Super Eagles.
And I'll tell you why I don't want to be Raw, because he made, I think he was, and for someone who is as vastly experienced as he is, he made some really naive decisions which ended up costing Nigeria dear. They were so narrow against Croatia. Yeah, they didn't have that width. As Rwanda said there, they were playing, a three-man backline before, using wing-backs who are offering them some kind of width, something for Odion Igalo to nibble off, to feed off. He was so isolated, and the question again is, Igalo, does he play well in tandem? Does he play well with someone? Because we have seen that at Watford when he was playing with Troy Deeney. Yeah, it would bring out the best in him. But when he's played alone, somehow he cuts this isolated figure, and he didn't have a lot to feed off. And I guess the reason for that could have been that Obi Mikel was played in a slightly advanced role. Many critics thought that maybe he should have been played deeper, and Iwobi, asked to play a more central role, maybe slightly behind Odion Igalo. They didn't create that many chances.
But how do we expect creativity when the man you expect creativity from is Mikel Obi?
Yeah.
He's been touted to play that role, but he's never played it.
I think the thing is, when he started out, by the way, he was that. Chelsea converted him into a much deeper lying player, but he didn't start there when he played out in Norway. Before, when we thought he was actually going to Man United, he actually was playing a little further advanced, but he's not growing any younger. So you think that perhaps he's more suited to a deeper role, where he sees more of the pitch and has more time on the ball to pick out his passes and use that range. The thing though is that in playing him there, they'd sort of given themselves some more solidity in the center of the park within Ndidi and was it Inazi?
Itebo.
It was Itebo. Actually, yeah, because for me it was Inazi throughout the qualifiers. So I keep thinking,
he was dropped. Yes,
he was dropped. Yes. So they ultimately though you expected better, not just from him, but from Moses and Iwobi, because that's where the real inroads are supposed to be created. Moses and Iwobi, they've got pace on them. They've got the ability to beat a man. They've got ability to produce a good ball. And between them, there wasn't a good pass into Igalo for a long time in that game. There's ultimately, you expect though that against Iceland, there might be a little more space because Croatia are the stronger team.
Yeah.
They're a really strong team. And for me, while I fancied Nigeria's chances, I always knew that this was a group of death, to be honest. They could have competed better in one or two of the other groups that African teams find themselves in.
Yeah.
This is unfortunate that they got a group in which you've got
Croatia is strong.
The world's best player and then one of the world's best teams in terms of organization.
Yeah.
But I think that against Iceland, what will happen is that Iceland have got to open up. Now there's a real chance to qualify after they got that unlikely point against Argentina. But also, Nigeria don't have Messi. They are not Argentina, World Cup champions 2 times, and all that stuff. So Iceland are not going to accord them the same respect. Even if they're a very organized team, you don't expect them to play 10 men behind the ball for 80 of the 90 minutes. They've got to go forward and get something as well. They'd fancy themselves to get something against Nigeria.
Yes.
So again, I expect some spaces to open up for Iwobi and Moses to do a little better than they did against Croatia. But also, I'm thinking that they've got options. Nigeria have got options. They've got the pace of Ahmed Musa.
Yeah.
I thought he should have got a few more minutes on the pitch than he actually did in that
Kelechi
game against. And then you've got Inacho as well. They might want to take some risks, Nigeria. If not at the start, at least a little earlier in the game, where if you've got both Ndidi and Itebe, one of them drops out so you can have an extra attacker. Because that can happen. Robert is talking about Igalo having a partner. You could actually do that and still have Iwobi and Moses on the pitch if you're playing only Ndidi and Mikel as the 2-man midfield. That can happen. And so you have a partner or somebody playing off Igalo. And then you have more firepower. Because at the point where they are now, they've actually got to go and take risks. They've lost 2-0. It's not only just the points against them, it's the goals too. It's the goals too.
Which brings to us, Andrew. Do you think the coach had, maybe his formation wasn't up to speed with that game against Croatia?
Definitely. Like I said, the moment you have Iwobi, rather Mikel, as your main creative fulcrum, then clearly you are set out to try and limit the damage from the more technically gifted Croatians. So it had to, either they had to shut out, and that's what almost they set out to do, because with Mikel right here there was nothing coming through, and then of course you had a dead in quotes Moses and Iwobi. So there was nothing coming through, and then of course you have Modric in there, you have Rakitic, who are just actually going through the Nigerian midfield with nothing to stop them.
Iceland don't have those kinds of midfielders. They've got work ethic, they've got shape. Sigurdsson, by the way, was so good against Argentina because they were playing so many men behind the ball and in crowded spaces, and Messi loves to operate in those as well. The thing though is that they needed to get out with the ball at their feet to survive the onslaughts, and every time they took the ball off Argentina, they had somebody to bring it out of defense, and he was doing it really well, Sigurdsson. I like that. But against Nigeria, I expect him to play a little further up the field than he did, because he was actually virtually standing right in front of his 18-yard box against Argentina. And yes, we know he fancies himself as a long-range shooter and with ability to pass and create. So I expect, again, that's why I'm saying I expect Iceland to play a little further up the pitch against Nigeria than they did against Argentina, and that should play into Nigeria's hands just a little bit.
And in that group, you have a Nigeria and an Iceland who actually think they are that team to pick points from. So Nigeria expect to pick points from Iceland. Same with Iceland.
It makes for good viewing, doesn't it?
Yes, it makes a good viewing.
Hopefully there's an early goal in there, and then there's a team chasing after the game, because then they'll go for it.
Yes.
And we'll be the better for it as viewers.
All right, I think we're into the 70-something minute, and it's still 1-1 between England and Tunisia.
Who would have thought?
Who would have
Watching the first 10 minutes.
Actually, we were chatting that Tunisia could be the weakest African team, and they have Africa's goal.
I still believe they are. That's the
so
football is funny all game.
Never say never. We'll keep on tabs. We'll keep that. We'll be keeping our eye on that match. But we want to link with Asha Komugisha, who's taking my place, as I say today. She's with Ian Mutenda, who's the technical director at Bright Stars. Earlier on, we asked you on social media, have you gotten out of this World Cup so far? What are your surprises? What do you think about the tournament so far? Asha?
Thank you very much, Joel. Yes, as you've mentioned, we have Ian Mutenda here who's going to break down the World Cup. He is the only person I know who you can ask anything about the World Cup and he'll tell you. And I know this because he's defeated me in a quiz before. Well, Ian, welcome to the press box.
Thank you very much, Asha. It's good to be here.
Thank you, thank you. Well, let's just go straight into the fate of African teams at the World Cup. It's been tough, really, when you look at the Egypt result there, and then Morocco, Nigeria, very poor show there. They really didn't come to the party. And then Tunisia is 1-1 with England at the moment. What do you make of the whole situation?
I think it's been tough. Obviously, we're hoping for a lot better. I think going into the competition, I had very big hopes for Senegal, who haven't yet played. I think it's easy for me to say that now, obviously, but Egypt were very close, Morocco were very close, and Nigeria, to a certain extent, didn't do too badly. But I think at the highest level, and the World Cup is definitely the highest level, you need to get all your margins right. And to think we've considered 5 goals from 5 set pieces, it's very tough to take, but hopefully we'll see something change as soon as possible with Tunisia and Senegal especially.
Well, Ian, when you look at our problems in the past, especially at the 2014 edition in Brazil, we had problems like match-winning bonuses, but these issues were settled way before this particular World Cup. So everything is fine, but now we get there, and maybe you feel that, especially for Nigeria, they're not really there. They're not fighting because they have a squad that has experienced players like Victor Moses, Obi Mikel. They play at the highest stage in the world. Where do you think the problem is?
I think the issue of bonuses is obviously, it's as if finally we've learned from our past mistakes, and I think the fact that we're not hearing anything of the sort this time is I guess a step in the right direction. Nigeria, to be honest, have been the biggest disappointment so far because Egypt put up a lot of resistance against a very good side without their best player, Mo Salah. Morocco came very close. I think they were actually a better team. But like I said, the fine margins in the game, when you're so close to the end, losing concentration, getting your body shape slightly off at the crucial moments, that's how we ended up losing the 2 games. But Nigeria, for me, were the biggest disappointment. Of course, Andrew was pointing out the fact that Obi Mikel is more of a central midfielder or holding midfielder, but for the Nigerian side, he does play as a number 10. I think at the start of the game, perhaps it made some sense because you're playing against one of the best midfields in world football with Rakitic and Modric, 2 players who are technically really good, but also can put in a lot of work in terms of going about the pitch, doing work when they don't have possession. So they were up against a very solid midfield, and maybe that's why he went for Ndidi and Mikel and Etebu at the start. But once they conceded that goal, I think he took a bit too long. This is the coach, obviously. Yeah. He took a bit too long to make that change because you'd have thought maybe at halftime with them trailing, perhaps get Iwobi central, take Mikel off, get another striker onto the pitch.
Iheanacho.
And exactly, Iheanacho. I think they left it a bit too long, and for a competition like this, there's not too much time to actually recover from going a goal behind, because if you look at the last, say, 5 tournaments, from the time they changed to the 32-team format in 1998, it's about 9%. 9% of teams that actually lose the first game get through. Only Spain went on to win it, but apart from Spain, it's very few teams. You can think Turkey in 2002, Ghana in the next edition. It's not very common for a team to lose the first game and come back to actually win the competition. So it's going to be very tough for all the African sides we've talked about, but Nigeria for me are the biggest disappointment, but they have to go all out in their second game against Iceland.
You talked about Senegal being Africa's hope, and it's the first time they're coming back to this stage since that 2002 amazing performance. And of course, Aliou Cissé as their head coach, Tony Silva in charge of the goalkeeping department. Do you think that this squad has what it takes to do exactly what the 2002 squad did, or even better?
No, I think that's a good start. First of all, they have people who have lived through it. They know what the players go through. They've been in that exact situation the only time Senegal got there. And they got to the quarterfinal stage. So hopefully they'll be able to transfer some of that experience. And obviously I'm not against having foreign coaches, but I like the fact that Senegal have a Senegalese coach, someone who...
And not just any Senegalese coach.
Exactly.
I used to say someone that these people, you know...
They looked up to.
Yeah, look up to, because I once had an interview with the captain, Shekou Kouyaté, and he said there's nothing that beats that. You know, when he tells you, do this, you listen to what he's saying. It's more like what Zinedine Zidane has been doing at Real Madrid. So Sadio Mane has had a good season with Liverpool in the English Premier League. Do you think he can replicate that for Senegal?
I really hope he can. I think the thing about Senegal, of course, we've seen a lot of organization from the African sides, but we haven't seen someone really take the game to the opponents. And when you think about African football, to be honest, you think about JJ Okocha, you think about Kano, you think about Roger Miller, if you're talking about the World Cup. And with Sadio Mane, you would like to think that he's the type of player who is technically good. Yes, physically he can move up and down the pitch as well. He's the type of person that you would hope steps up at the biggest stage, and I do think he's capable actually, because he has had a good season. He has been winning a number of games. Of course, Liverpool didn't go all the way, but yeah, he does have a bit of momentum. He does have that belief in himself, and he has a very good, more importantly, he has a very good team around him. So I think he could actually take that team to the next level.
And I think also having Keita Balde in there, him and Sadio Mane will bring a lot of pace from the wings. Now, let's look at generally the tournament. There's been some shocking results. Argentina failing to win, Germany being held to a draw. Germany losing, yeah. And of course, the draw between Spain and Portugal. What do you make of all this drama?
I love the World Cup. You said it at the start. I'm obsessed by this competition, and the fact that we've had such an exciting start, obviously, with Ronaldo stepping up for Portugal and Spain playing the way they did. I think there was a mess with Spain just before the competition with Lopetegui and Hierro stepping in at the last minute. I think there's a lot of drama going on there, but Ronaldo did step up. For Iceland, I think we've come to expect a lot from them. Somehow you don't expect anything, and yet you expect a lot from them at the same time because of what we saw at the Euros. They showed they could compete against anyone at the Euros, and they've done it again at this early stage in the competition against Argentina. And of course, the big one, I guess, was Mexico. Mexico winning. Perhaps it's not that big a surprise that Mexico would step up at the World Cup because they have such a long history in World Cup, but the fact that they went out and beat the defending champions.
And from the first minute.
Yeah, from the first minute, the intensity was really high. Their transition, I think they must have been working on that transition from defense to attack. You could see a purpose, you could see the speed, and all the possession was going forwards, not sideways like very many other teams we've watched. I think there was an element of complacency from Germany. I think there was this feeling that they would just step onto the pitch and win. But of course, that's not how football works, and I think they felt it firsthand. So they have another uphill battle to qualify. And it would be interesting if Germany end up finishing second, they might play Brazil if Brazil do win the group. So what people were looking at as a game they would watch later in the competition, you could end up having Brazil against Germany in the round of 16. So all sorts of drama. I think for us neutrals, of course we're supporting the African teams, but yeah, as neutrals, it's fun to watch because there's some exciting ties ahead.
All right, just your last question. What is your prediction from a tactical point of view? Which side do you feel can go on and win the World Cup?
No, like I said, tactically, I mean, I want to watch this game. Another reason why I love watching the World Cup is because you see different elements, different styles of football from the different continents. I was expecting Brazil to win this competition going into, before it started. I wasn't so convinced with their display against Switzerland, to be honest. But obviously I won't change that. I'll stick to Brazil. Why? Because I think they learned a lot of lessons losing the way they did at home, conceding so many goals. There's a bit of steel and a bit of organization in their side if they play with Fernandinho and Casemiro and Paulinho and those types of players. But they still have the flair of Neymar and Coutinho, and they can do a bit of both. Yeah, so there's a bit more organization to their side. But like I said, their first game wasn't too convincing, so we might have to see how these teams adapt as the competition goes on. But some teams have disappointed me, but it's just the first game so far. France especially could have done more, they got the win, and a few others, yeah. But like I said, Brazil was my pick before, and I think I'll have to stick to that.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. Like I said earlier, we have a question for you on social media. What have been your highlights so far at this World Cup, 5 days in? And you can use the hashtag NTV PRESSBOX, but you can also send us your predictions that we'll be looking at later on in the show. Thank you very much, Ian, for coming. Back to you, Joel. A break after this, and we'll be back with more of the discussions about the World Cup.
Right, welcome back from that break. It is 4 down and 1 to go. Tunisia, African representatives, have just conceded a late goal courtesy of that man again, Harry Kane, in the 90th minute. That means our only hope in Africa is Senegal, who play tomorrow against Poland. Let's just take you to that stadium in Russia to just look at the highlights, courtesy of Supersport.
England finally found a way. It was the Kane way. Lucky general or not, Gareth Southgate has a winning World Cup start. Harry Kane established England's first lead. Sassie's penalty deleted it, but Kane at the end re-established it, and England beats Tunisia by 2 goals to 1.
So a heartbreak from...
Wow, all right. Harry Kane breaking African hearts once again. It is a very painful one to take in, but there's still Senegal, who face Poland tomorrow at 6 p.m. But as we told you earlier, the man who was supposed to be sitting here today, Andrew Kabura, is in Russia, Moscow to be precise, and he was talking to one African legend in the names of Daniel Amokachi about the World Cup so far. Take a listen.
The 2018 FIFA World Cup is on, and one of the biggest issues is how unpredictable this tournament is. Now, joining me to give me quick analysis is a very good friend of mine, but also an African football legend, a man who has coached at 2 World Cups and played at 2 World Cups. Now, most of the African football fans call him the Bull, but I call him Daniel Amokachi. Daniel, thank you very much for speaking to the Ugandan viewers out there. This World Cup, Daniel, Mexico getting a result against the defending champions. We saw a big result for Iceland against Argentina. We saw there's so many surprises. It's very unpredictable.
I think that's the beautiful thing about football. You know, when you come out in the major tournament, you know what, there's a lot of expectation, there's a lot of lows. You know, countries that you never expect to make, they pull out surprises, they are pulling out surprises. And it's just the first week. And that's the most important thing about it. And it allows the other countries to sit up, those that haven't played yet. If, like you did say, Mexico will stun Germany, Brazil will be held by Switzerland, you know, Argentina and Portugal, that they thought, okay, it's gonna be, it was never easy for all teams. They all picked up 1 point. So it's good to see, and I'm loving it, because that's what football is supposed to be.
Some football analysts, so Daniel, are saying it is early days, so many shockers. The bigger boys are going to settle into the tournament and get their rhythm. Does that mean we should change our thoughts on who actually could win the World Cup?
Yeah, well, you know, winning the World Cup, like I've always told the world, you know, going into the Mundial, you have to put the likes of Germany, you put the likes of France, put the likes of Brazil and Argentina. All those ones are capable nations that can win the World Cup. But at the same time, you know, we saw it in 2010. You know, the Spaniards end up losing their first game against Switzerland. What happened? They went all the way and won the World Cup. So after the second game, we'll see those that have settled down or those that are ready to go back home. Because one game, of course, is huge because you have only 3 games to play. But at the same time, you know, another 90 minutes in your kitty and a good result will definitely propel you to the next stage.
Well, my final question is breaking news. Of course, Uganda not at the World Cup. We all know this. But Nigeria is at the World Cup. And one of the bigger debates Daniel and I have been having is which African team will do better. Egypt losing, Morocco losing, Nigeria not doing well. There's Tunisia and Senegal in there to still look out for. Daniel, should we change our minds? Could an African style still do perfectly well?
Yeah, why not? Like I did say earlier, you know, we came into the Mundial thinking it would be an easy ride for those countries that we did mention that, you know, they didn't have a good start in the first game. Yeah. Little country like Mexico are stepping up. Australia had the wonderful game. Nobody expected it. And of course, you know, why not? Senegal could be a surprising team. Like I've always said, Tunisia is a nation that always go to each tournament as a dark horse because you never know what they're going to bring to the plate. But, you know, will an African country make us proud? We are hoping and we wish they do better than the first game they have played for us.
Daniel, finally, I do request you. I really do request you. There are so many football fans in Uganda who have watched you over the years, who have followed your career. Most of them are some younger football fans as well. I've always wanted to ask you as a legend, what advice do you give those youngsters? You left Nigeria when you're just 16. What's your word to the young football fans out there in Uganda who want to achieve as much as you achieved?
You know, the generation have surpassed this when we played and the new generation. The new generation, you know, I call the young ones because they watch a lot of football. You know, they predict a lot of football, but, you know, they don't put football into play, you know, on the field, you know, because football is practical, it's not theoretically. You know, you have to be the man to be the man. You know, focus on whatsoever you do. Put 120% into whatever you want to do. But at the same time, I've always said focus on education because education is key. The name of the game, there's a lot of hazard in football. You know, you never know. I stopped playing at the age of 28, and I've always told that. I'm not telling you a story, it's a living testimony. If I wasn't equipped a bit in the educational aspect, I'll have been doomed by now because we've seen a lot of our generation who are struggling. So education is key, but follow your dream. If you will be a superstar and a football player, dedicate your life to it and you will surely be.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Daniel has something he always says, and I do love saying it, and I'm going to ask him to say it. He always says, holla, if you hear me.
They didn't say it right. Holla, if you hear me.
All right, from Tungamo to Russia, our man Andrew Kabura representing us and the press box in Russia. Very good job, Andrew. Of course, he's speaking to a man that coached at the World Cup twice and played at the World Cup twice. That's Daniel the Bull Amokachi. But moving on, guys. Tunisia has just lost to England. What next for the African nation? Because they face Belgium and Panama next.
Next for African nations is Poland, Senegal. So
Africa is a country.
So we just have to wait and see. But still in that group, watching, of course, Panama. When you look at the group, I mean, theoretically, you'd think Panama are the second or the worst team, then Tunisia. But it's almost clear. Belgium, England, you expect them to come up top, and this was going to be tough. The next match for England was going to be tough if they hadn't beaten Tunisia. But again, what does that mean? I think when an African team loses an opening match, the odds are really stacked against them. Now they can hope to beat Panama. I don't see them coming up tops against Lukaku's Belgium, Hazard. So literally for them, I think for an African team, if you lose the first match, really, I struggle to see how you can get out of that.
Yeah, the thing with Tunisia, to be honest, is that they were just fighting gallantly. We already talked about it. Those first 10 minutes showed us that that was our poorest team sent to the World Cup, where our is Africa. And when they equalized, it was a bit of a surprise. And then when they hung in there, it was, come on, you Tunisia, come on, you Tunisia. And it was really hope on our side, to be honest, because they were actually soaking it in by the end of the game and considered yet another set piece. Now, I don't blame them too much, for set pieces, as I would the other African countries, because they were playing against a very big England side, to be honest. You're talking about 6-footers. John Stones, Harry Maguire, Jordan Henderson, Harry Kane, of course the guy who got on the end of both set pieces, and they even brought on Eric Dyer at the end. Virtually, I mean, you've got small guys like Lingard and Sterling, but that's deceptive because England is a very big team. One of the biggest teams at the World Cup.
But Mark,
having said that,
the question is, before
Yeah.
you may get that point in,
Yes.
I think this is the third African country that has failed to see out,
a game. That's more
worrying. And that is worrying.
That
because
is what's worrying, yes,
because the manner in which they considered that corner kick, it was inevitable. Sorry, it was evitable. It could have been avoided.
Yeah.
But they ended up conceding it. So there is that bit. Are we streetwise enough? Africans, by we I mean Africans, are we streetwise enough to see off a game? Because the way you saw, the Icelanders seeing off that game when the Argentines were throwing the kitchen sink at them.
It's a huge worry for me when you say it that way, because and it's been one of our Achilles heels across the ages as a World Cup team. The one team that you knew could hang on to a result was Cameroon. That's the African team that you could look at over the years in the World Cups and see they could hang on to a result was actually Cameroon, because that opening match against Argentina, Italia 90 will live on in the memories of people.
I remember the 3-3 draw between Senegal and Uruguay. I almost lost my heart.
I know. They just
because they had taken a 3-0 lead.
Yes, I know. And I mean, you remember even Nigeria looked like the better team against Italy at USA 94.
Yes, 94.
But succumbed to
2-1 loss.
It was just trickery from Roberto Baggio. I mean, he won a penalty off somebody by just lifting the ball in the. He was just trying out something, because, to be honest, for many parts of that game, Italy looked second best to Nigeria. And actually, if the referee had been more brave, Maldini should have been sent off for trying to drag Yekini back for about 30 yards. But I'll tell you, because when you look at the African teams now, you don't have the kind of... When I look at Daniel Amokachi, the team he played in at that World Cup, had him, had Samson Siasi and George Finidi, had JJ Okocha and Rashid Yekini. We're talking about big, extremely talented players. We don't have those kinds of players anymore as in outfits that take out that kind of talent to a World Cup. So we need to be more organized. We need to be able to see out results by being a little more tactical. We need to concentrate a little better. Set pieces, very disappointing. For you to be conceding set pieces, because while you're being beaten in the air by big guys from England, for example, you shouldn't be conceding the kind of set piece that Morocco conceded to Iran. You shouldn't be putting the ball in the back of your net under those circumstances, to be honest. That was really disappointing. And I'm thinking, because where football has gone a little down in the technical abilities of individuals, the ability of individuals to take games by the scruff of the neck, you need better team play. That's the trend in world football. You need better team play, you need more organization. And I think that's where we still lag behind the rest of the world.
Let me take this to Andrew Mangusha quickly before we move on to Asha Kumugisha, who's standing by with social media comments. 4 down, 1 to go. I'd like to say it's going to be easy for African continents, but it is for the African continent, but it's not going to be easy. In fact, Senegal face Poland, who's not the easiest of opponents tomorrow.
Poland, of course, with genes from Germany. They're all over that team, and then you come up. But, you say something about a team, it comes, plays, then you take it out. But I'll be honest, Senegal now and Nigeria were my 2 teams from Africa where I expected things to happen. And this is the only team at the World Cup coached by an African. So it's also a good test tomorrow to see how is the first win or first point coming off an African coach. And of course, Poland is not just like Croatia. They're also quite technically gifted. They're good on the ball. But I really want to give my heart to Tunisia, rather to Senegal. One, you could argue in their group they hardly had opponents. They had South Africa, and we know how that panned out, the cancelled game and all. So they were not tested enough coming into the World Cup, but you cannot take it away from them, the manner in which the goals they scored and the manner in which they disposed of South Africa at the second chance. So I'm thinking as Africa tomorrow really will be holding our hearts and hoping for the best. But I want to address this because we may not address it. The next World Cup we're having 48 teams. Which also saw 2026 the 48 teams. And then we also
USA, Mexico, Canada.
Yes. So we have increased number of African teams. Before this whole hullabaloo of increased numbers of teams and all, I didn't see any sense in Africans pushing for an extra number of teams. Yet with 5 for eternity, we failed to go past the quarterfinal stage. And in this World Cup, it is increasingly clear that, not clear because Senegal haven't played, that we are going to struggle actually to even get to the quarterfinals.
Do you think we missed the likes of Cameroon and Ghana in this World Cup?
Yes, but
I
also
don't think
no.
they would have done much.
If they were good enough, they should be here.
But the teams you feel for are the teams that Nigeria knocked out of the World Cup, because that was a tough group. Okay, Cameroon were there and so were Algeria. That was a really tough group.
That was a very tough group.
And I thought actually going into those qualifiers that Algeria were the best team in Africa. I don't know whatever happened. They collapsed. They just fell flat on their faces and couldn't do a single thing there. They were, because if you remember,
same as Nations Cup 2017
at the 2014 World Cup, they played Germany off the park.
They did.
Did they not, Algeria?
Yeah, they did.
And that I thought that was the golden age coming to life. Okay, well, there was 90 so long ago. I don't know if you guys watched Rabah Maja and Jamel Menad and those guys, but this I thought that Algeria were back. But it hasn't lasted long, to be honest. But this Moroccan team can be something really special if only they continue to develop. I think virtually the entire team were born in France. So they've had a good football education, to be honest. And if they continue to play well together, that was a disappointing result, and I don't think they're going to get a better match than against Iran.
And by the way, in that group, Mark,
but yes,
let's not forget to mention that group. Iran tops that group that has Spain and
a team that last won a World Cup game in 1998.
So they top the group actually that has Spain.
But the thing is that you know they've got some. I mean, in terms of proximity and history and geography and all, they will fancy the games. They will want to play against Spain and Portugal for obvious reasons. The Moroccans are they the closest African nation to those
Spain?
Two?
They are. Spain. They should.
So, I'm thinking they've got quite a number of players who either grow up there or actually become naturalized over across the seas. And I think they'll fancy themselves. Having said that, I give them little or no chance. They should have at least got a draw in this one.
Okay, and we're coming back with Spain and Portugal, because I want there's a point I want to talk to about that game. But let's quickly switch to Asha Komugesha, who's standing by with comments on social media. What have you made about this World Cup so far, Asha?
Thank you very much, Joel. Just like we said earlier, our social media question was, what are your highlights so far at the FIFA World Cup in Russia? And also send us your predictions. So far, I'll just read through some of the comments that are coming through. Sir Fabian Pavez says, what's a highlight than a sublime free kick taken by the greatest of all time? Hope the debate between the two was settled then. I think he's referring to Cristiano Ronaldo's free kick for Portugal against Spain. And if you must insist, Cristiano has already scored 3 goals and Messi is yet to find the back of the net. Then Dixon Okello, he says, my biggest highlight so far is the use of match day stewards instead of uniformed police officers with tear gas and guns on the pitch. Uganda has a lot to learn indeed. And then Gerald Mawanda says, he talks about Africa's chances at the World Cup, and he's really not impressed at maybe what is happening so far. We've just learned that Tunisia lost to England from a last-minute goal there from Harry Kane. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'll be reacting to more of your questions, and thank you very much, everyone. Back to you, Joel.
All right, many thanks, Asha Komugesha. You've heard it from the guys giving us their comments on social media, and keep them coming, because we shall continue to engage you even after this show is done. But let me just quickly come back to that Spain and Portugal match, a match that everybody is saying is the match of the tournament so far, and people are already claiming that Cristiano Ronaldo might be the greatest, the GOAT, and some saying that Lionel Messi, probably someone stole his GOAT, that's why he didn't deliver in that match against Iceland. But talking about that Spain and Portugal match, really guys, Cristiano Ronaldo, they say you have to back it up. It ain't bragging if you can back it up, and he definitely backed it up.
Like I said earlier, I have not seen.
You'll not sit well with Manchester United.
I've not seen a more resolute Cristiano Ronaldo in recent years than against that. From the moment he got the ball and made the step-overs to earn that penalty.
Yes.
Every time he had the ball, you know, the Ronaldo recently, you know, dropped shoulders, losing the ball, showed some disinterest. But in this match, he came like he wanted this match. I don't know whether he was inspired by the courts in Spain that, you know, charged him for tax evasion. And at the end of the match, actually, the Spanish authorities could have been trying to receive the call. And
now, I'll tell you this. No, I'll tell you. There is one of the things that you need to remember and realize is that this is the fittest he has gone into a major tournament in a long time.
Yes.
Over the last 10 years, Ronaldo has given so much to Real Madrid that he's been virtually exhausted going into major tournaments. Injured for some of them. At 2014, he wasn't. You remember?
Yeah.
He shouldn't have played at the World Cup. At that World Cup, it was a case of the Mo Salah now or the David Beckham.
David Beckham, Metataso.
Yeah. But he forced himself into there and then managed to at least get a goal against Ghana, which was a consolation goal because Portugal were already out of the tournament anyway because of failing to win that game. Yeah. But he's come into this one fit. He's had a very good season. A little tiring at the end, but not as demanding as some of the others. He was going into major tournaments off the back of 60-goal seasons for Real Madrid, in which he was fighting against Messi at the peak of his powers for Ballon d'Ors, for individual accolades and everything, and threw everything into those. Now he's gone into this a little fitter. He's also wiser because he's a little older and wiser. So there's a bit of how he saves his energy. He doesn't have to run into the channels, picking up the ball in places where he won't hurt the team. He virtually positions himself to just hurt you where it matters most, and that's the goals. Thing though is that he got a bit of a rub of the green. You're talking about a hat-trick in which you've got 2 set pieces and 1 goalkeeping error. And but he took them. You've got to take them when you get them, and that free kick was out of this world. To be honest, it's been long since
I thought it was a deflection, but when I saw it again,
it's been long since he took one of those. I remember the one against David James and Portsmouth. There's been at Madrid he hasn't scored that many, and not lately. They are in his the earlier part of his Madrid career. So this one was really good when he took it. But it was it was a very good thing. There's the debate then comes up. Because Lionel Messi then came up the next day, was a little too eager,
and disarmed his fans,
and then had a bad one. Listen, the bit about him, Cristiano being greatest of all time, that's premature where I'm concerned. And you're talking about a Ronaldo fan here. If you wanted to really stake claim to that, let him take this Portugal
to the final,
to the final and win it. Because it's not a very talented Portugal, to be honest. And he takes a lot of credit for them winning the Euros 2 years ago. Because, and even if he didn't contribute to the final because of injury and all, he had carried them up to that point with the goal against Wales and everything. So you take credit for that because in the past, there were some very talented Portugal teams. I mean, when Rui Costa played with Luis Figo and Nuno Gomes and Pedro Pauleta and those guys, Ronaldo doesn't have that kind of company. And he virtually carries this team, to be honest.
Yeah, actually some guys were saying he's the LeBron of Portugal. He's what LeBron is to cut the Cavs.
I'll tell you that. But then you have to go all the way. If you look at some of the guys who we call the greatest of all time, if you look at Diego Maradona, 1986 and 1990. 1986, outside of Burushaga, you'd struggle to name another Maradona teammate in that team. In the same World Cup in which Germany were that good, in which Brazil, I mean, do you remember you guys were not old enough to, the game between Brazil and France at 1986 World Cup. That was one of the best World Cup games you'll ever see. And those are 2 of the most talented sides you'll ever see playing a World Cup. And Maradona and that Argentina won the World Cup. I mean, to be honest, they were pretty average. Come to 1990, he dragged that team to the final. Again, outside of Burushaga and Caniggia, you had a bunch of mechanics, if I might use the word, to be honest. And again, he dragged that team to the final. Now, ironically, the team that was really talented, with which he could have easily won the World Cup, was the 1994 one, where he got banned for the drugs. Because there you're talking about Batistuta, Abel Balbo, Ariel Ortega, Fernando Redondo. You remember that team?
Yes.
That's US 94 Argentina. Now that was a strong team. But he dragged some pretty average teams to the final and won the World Cup with one of them. That's what these 2 guys have to do. Actually, Messi
and it's last chance
for either one. Messi plays with a lot better players with this Argentina than Maradona did. If you talk about some of them, this first lineup of this game looked a bit average.
Yeah.
But the teams he played with at the 2014 World Cup and this one, to be honest, when you look at all of them, they're better than the guys that Diego played with. Ronaldo, if he did that with this Portugal, it would be amazing, because the figures couldn't do it with a better team. And if even the legend, the great Eusebio, couldn't do it with a much better team than this.
Okay, I'm being told we are fast running out of time, but I'll take 20 seconds of each of you, because I don't want to brush away Spain as a host nation. Absolutely. I mean, as a competitor at the world, and a favorite at the World Cup.
And also France.
France, of course. 20 seconds, guys. Do you think Spain are being affected by the Hierro decision, by the Hierro being the manager of Spain after Lopetegui left?
When I heard about the bust up, by the way, hands up for Diego Costa. Ronaldo took away all the limelight. The man was special. Fernando Hierro, I read there was some bust up between him and Diego Costa for taking him off. So that in
the dressing room.
In the dressing room. So that in itself could be questionable. But you see, it's only questionable because Portugal equalized. So to me, of all the draws, Spain and actually, Portugal,
Diego missed I wouldn't say clear-cut chance, but he had the chance, on a hat-trick, and he scuffed his shot. So Diego is that. He brings a lot of passion.
Of all the draws, I think Spain and Portugal was a good draw for either team, because when you look at the group, they should be the ones to come through. So it's better than Iceland and Brazil 1-1, because these two teams know they have to cancel each other out and then sort the other two.
All right, 20 seconds, 10 seconds actually. Robert Madoy, talk about France. They didn't have that convincing start in the first World Cup game. Winning, but not convincingly.
Yeah, they weren't convincing. They struggled a bit. Actually, they were lucky to get that. I don't know if Paul Pogba intended for.
Actually, the goal was taken away.
It was.
Yeah, it's an own goal now.
But I like France. I like the look about them, and I'm not saying this because I have a soft spot for the team, but I like the pace in the team. I was reading one commentator was saying that actually a team that counterattacks well within this World Cup will have the best shot at winning
that's Mexico.
and France have the kind of players who can hit you on the counter if they are playing, let's say, against Brazil, and Brazil is more superior than them. They have the likes of Dembele, lots of pace, Kylian Mbappe.
Right. Someone was joking,
Antoine Griezmann.
But why are you saying all African teams have lost at the World Cup?
Yet we have France.
No, the thing though is that the difference between those lineups, the France lineup and some of the other lineups we've seen, is that where you've got teams playing a 4-2-3-1, or where they play virtually 5 midfielders and one lone striker at the top, like you saw with Spain. Those French guys, you've got 3 forwards basically.
Okay.
They are not midfielders. So you've got Pogba playing with Tolisso, is it?
Yes, Tolisso.
With Tolisso.
Yeah, and N'Golo Kante.
N'Golo Kante.
Yeah.
But the other 3 are forwards. Mbappe and Dembele have got loads of pace, and so does Antoine Griezmann. So they've got firepower.
Yeah.
But what I like about Spain, and what should not be underestimated, is the strength of that 5-man midfield. Now, they did not get the result, but they were the better team.
Yeah.
They virtually they dominated that game and passed Portugal off the park at certain times. It's just that the brilliance of an individual overshadowed that. And then everybody else thinks Spain are not as good as they looked when Xavi and played, and Iniesta was at the top of his game, and some of these guys were there who are not at this World Cup. But that 3-man, the 3 creative midfielders, David Silva, Isco, and Iniesta.
Yeah.
There's not another team at the World Cup that has that kind of trio. And they're shored up very well, Sergio Busquets and Koke.
Yes.
Now, they're going to tear some teams apart, and some people will be surprised. They shouldn't. Nobody should be surprised when Spain tear certain teams apart at this World Cup, because when Silva and Isco and Iniesta come at you the way they can, I mean, you're in trouble.
And there's a new sense of
all right, guys, we have run out of time. I'd want to get this conversation going more and more, but sadly, we have run out of time. Tomorrow, remember, there's 2 African nations on the cards in the World Cup. There's Senegal versus Poland at 6 p.m. Then there's Egypt versus Russia at 9 p.m. I don't know what this gentleman and Asha Komugisha predicted 2 weeks ago. Was it Iran for you and Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia,
I think.
I did Germany.
But well,
those were not predictions. that was us dipping our hands.
Fantastic. We shall get into that next Monday. This has been the Press Box. Very many thanks for keeping us company and for watching. The World Cup continues tomorrow. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Have yourselves a good night.